Welcome to Lore of the Rings, where we explore the secret paths of Middle-earth and share the stories Tolkien never told. Before we dive in, take a moment to tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from and whether this tale has found you by day or by night. In the uttermost east of Middle-earth, where the mountains of shadow rise like broken teeth against a sky choked with ash, there stands a tower, Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower. A monument to malice so vast that its shadow falls across leagues of desolation, so tall that its pinnacle scrapes the belly of storm clouds that never cease their churning. From that pinnacle burns an eye, not of flesh, but of will, a flame of searching hatred that scours the horizons, probing every corner of the world for the one thing that could restore its master to ultimate dominion. The One Ring. For centuries, that gaze swept across Middle-earth like a lighthouse of damnation. It pierced the councils of kings. It hunted through the ruins of ancient kingdoms. It whispered into the dreams of the weak and the ambitious, seeking, always seeking, the golden band that held within it the fractured essence of Sauron himself. And yet, in a hole in the ground, in a land so green and peaceful it seemed untouched by the concerns of greater powers, there lived a hobbit. His name was Bilbo Baggins. He was fond of his garden, fonder still of his meals, 6 of them daily if he could manage, and he kept in his pocket, wrapped in a handkerchief or tucked in a waistcoat, the very object that Sauron's eye had scoured half the world to find. The One Ring. Bilbo wore it, used it, slipped it onto his finger at parties to vanish from the sight of his relatives, wore it on adventures in goblin tunnels, before the eyes of dragons, and in the presence of dark woods crawling with spiders the size of ponies. He carried it for decades, this artifact of supreme evil, this treasure beyond price, this beacon of malevolent power. And Sauron never saw him, not once, not even a flicker of awareness, not even a whisper of suspicion. The Dark Lord, whose will could bend nations, whose servants scoured the lands on black horses with crowns of iron and blades of cursed steel, whose very presence could break the courage of the stout-hearted. This being of terrible majesty and ancient cunning missed entirely the small, hairy-footed creature who possessed the one thing he desired above all else. How? How could the eye that searched the world fail to perceive a single hobbit? How could the greatest instrument of surveillance in the history of Arda, a gaze that could pierce stone and shadow, that could sense the movements of armies and the whispers of traitors, overlook the bearer of the ring that was bound to Sauron's own essence? Was it luck? Was it chance? Was it some flaw in the Dark Lord's perception, some blind spot in his vast intelligence? Or was it something deeper, something woven into the very fabric of fate itself, a design so subtle that even Sauron, in all his cunning, could not perceive it? The answer is not simple. It never is when dealing with the works of Tolkien, where every thread of story is woven into a tapestry of myth and meaning that stretches back to the creation of the world itself. To understand why Sauron never saw Bilbo, we must understand 4 interlocking mysteries, 4 truths that converge in the singular, improbable invisibility of one small hobbit. First, we must understand the nature of Sauron's sight, what the eye truly was, what it could perceive, and what it could not. Second, we must understand the ring itself, not merely as an object of power, but as a living will, a calculating presence with desires and strategies of its own. Third, we must understand the strange protection that surrounded the Shire and its people, a veil of obscurity that kept hobbits hidden from the notice of the great and terrible. And fourth, we must understand Bilbo himself. His nature, his choices, his peculiar resistance to the corruption that consumed so many others who touched the ring. These four mysteries, woven together, reveal a truth more profound than simple oversight. They reveal a design so intricate, so perfectly balanced, that it suggests the hand of something far greater than chance. They reveal that Bilbo's invisibility was not an accident of history, but a necessity of fate, a small light preserved in shadow until the moment when that light would be needed most. But to grasp this truth, we must begin not with hobbits, but with darkness. We must descend into the mind of the enemy himself, into the fractured consciousness of Sauron, and understand the nature of the gaze that sought to dominate all. The eye flares atop Barad Dûr, a wheel of fire turning slowly across the horizon, searching the kingdoms of men, the forests of elves, the mountains of dwarves. And in the west, in a land of green hills and gentle rivers, a hobbit locks his round green door, pats his pocket where a golden ring rests, and thinks nothing of the darkness that hunts him. The eye turns, searches, burns, and sees nothing, nothing at all. To speak of Sauron's perception, we must first anchor ourselves in the texts, those fragments of lore preserved by Tolkien in his legendarium, his letters, his revisions and reconsiderations. For the story of Bilbo and the Ring is not merely a tale told in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but a thread woven through decades of mythological development, a mystery that Tolkien himself revisited, questioned, and refined as he deepened his understanding of his own creation. The Eye of Sauron. How that image has burned itself into the imagination of readers. A lidless eye wreathed in flame, turning ceaselessly atop the dark tower, an emblem of surveillance and tyranny. But what is the eye, truly? Is it a physical organ, a great oculus of flesh and fire? Or is it something else? A symbol, a manifestation of will, a psychic presence that transcends mere sight. Tolkien's own writings reveal the truth. The eye is not literal in the way we might imagine. Sauron, in the Third Age, has no physical form in the traditional sense. He lost that in the fall of Númenor, when the island kingdom was dragged beneath the waves and his body was destroyed in the cataclysm. What returned to Middle-earth was a spirit, a Maya diminished and desperate, clinging to existence through the fragment of his essence he had poured into the ring. The eye, then, is a symbol of his consciousness, his ability to perceive, to search, to exert his will across distance. But it is not omniscient. It is not omnipresent. It is, like Sauron himself, broken. This is crucial to understanding the mystery of Bilbo. In his letters, Tolkien describes Sauron as having lost the power to assume a form fair or foul. He is bound to Mordor, a presence of malice and domination, but no longer capable of the shape-shifting and physical prowess he once possessed. His reach is vast, yes, but it is not infinite. His perception is powerful, but it is not complete. Sauron's awareness spreads through his servants, the Nazgûl, the orcs, the corrupted men who serve him. It extends through his will, pressing against the minds of his enemies, seeking cracks in their resolve, searching for the ring through a kind of psychic resonance. But he does not see in the way we see. He senses. He infers. He hunts. And he hunts where he expects his prey to be. This is the first key to the mystery. Sauron's blindness to Bilbo is not merely a failure of perception. It is a failure of imagination. He cannot conceive that the ring, his ring, the embodiment of his power and his will, would rest in the hands of a creature so small, so insignificant, so utterly beneath his notice. Hobbits do not figure in the great myths of Middle-earth. They do not appear in the wars of the First Age, in the chronicles of Númenor, in the battles against Morgoth. They are a recent people, or at least a people only recently noticed by the wise. Even among the elves who have walked the world since its youth, hobbits are a curiosity, a halfling folk, rustic and provincial, content with their gardens and their pipeweed and their 6 meals a day. To Sauron, hobbits are nothing, less than nothing. They are the small folk who inhabit the margins of the world, who pose no threat, hold no power, wield no influence. Why would he search among them for the greatest treasure in Arda? Why would he waste his limited perception on creatures who barely register in the grand schemes of kings and wizards? This blindness is not mere oversight. It is arrogance. It is the fundamental flaw in Sauron's vision. He sees power and only power. He expects his enemies to be mighty. He searches for the ring among the strong, the ambitious, the proud. He looks for it in Gondor, in Rohan, among the elves of Rivendell and Lothlorien. He does not look for it in the Shire. But there is more to the mystery than Sauron's limitations. For the ring itself is no passive object. It is alive in its way. It has a will. It has desires. And it has reasons of its own for remaining silent. The question shifts then. If the ring wants to return to Sauron, if it is a fragment of his very being, bound to him by the sorcery woven into its making, then why did it not call to him when Bilbo wore it? Why did it not betray its bearer, send out a signal, a pulse of recognition that would draw the eyes gaze westward to the Shire? To answer this, we must understand the ring not as a tool, but as a creature. A calculating, patient, treacherous creature. And that is where the tale grows darker still. Sauron was not always as he is now, diminished, bodiless, clinging to a tower of black stone in a wasteland of ash. Once he was Meron the Admirable, a Maya of Alle the Smith, a spirit of craft and order who walked in the blessed realm before the world was made. He was beautiful. He was wise. He possessed knowledge of the deep structures of matter and form, of the music that underpins creation. When Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, fell into shadow and began his long rebellion against the design of Iluvatar, Sauron followed, not out of chaos, but out of a desire for control, for a world ordered according to his vision, perfect and unchanging. But perfection is a trap. Order without freedom becomes tyranny. And Sauron, in his pursuit of dominion, poured more and more of his native power into his schemes until he became less than he had been, a slave to his own ambition, a spirit fragmented and bound to the very instruments of his will. The One Ring was the culmination of that binding. Into that band of gold, he poured the greater part of his essence. It was a gambit of staggering arrogance, to create an object that could dominate all other rings of power, to bind the wills of elves and dwarves and men to his own. But the cost was immense. The ring became a part of him, indivisible from his being. While he possessed it, he was mightier than any other power in Middle-earth. But separated from it, he was crippled, a ghost of his former majesty. And he had been separated from it for 3,000 years. 3,000 years since Isildur cut the ring from his hand in the fires of Mount Doom. 3,000 years since his form was destroyed and his spirit cast into the shadows. 3,000 years of slow, agonizing reconstitution, of gathering his scattered will, of rebuilding his strength in the darkness of Dol Guldur and later in the fortress of Barad-dûr. But even at the height of his power in the Third Age, Sauron is not what he once was. He is a broken thing, a consciousness stretched thin across the miles, unable to assume the form he once wore, unable to manifest the full majesty of his will. His perception, vast as it is scattered, like a storm that rages across the sky but cannot focus its fury on a single point. He searches. Oh, how he searches. His awareness spreads like smoke across Middle-earth, probing the minds of his enemies, seeking the resonance of the ring. For the ring calls to him, or should, it is a part of him, bound to him by the very sorcery of its making. When the ring is used, when its power is invoked, Sauron should feel it, a pulse of recognition, a thread of connection that draws his gaze unerringly to its location. But that connection is not absolute. It is conditional. It depends on several factors that Tolkien wove carefully into the metaphysics of his world. First, the ring must be used, not merely worn, but employed with intent, its power invoked for some purpose. Simply carrying it, or even wearing it, does not necessarily announce the bearer's presence. It is the will behind the use, the ambition, the desire that creates the resonance Sauron can detect. Second, Sauron's perception is stronger in some places than others. Near Mordor, in the lands under his direct dominion, his awareness is keen and terrible. But at great distances, in lands far from his seat of power, his perception is vaguer, more uncertain. He can sense disturbances, anomalies, the use of great power, but he cannot pinpoint with precision unless the signal is strong and clear. Third, and this is crucial, Sauron's awareness is shaped by his expectations. He is hunting for the ring among those he considers worthy adversaries. He watches Gondor, because the heirs of Númenor dwell there and they once defeated him. He watches the elves, because they are ancient and wise and possess rings of their own. He watches Saruman, because the White Wizard is learned in ring lore and might have discovered the ring's whereabouts through his studies. He does not watch the Shire. Why would he? Who dwells there but small, rustic folk with no history of power, no ambition beyond the boundaries of their farms. Hobbits are beneath his notice, invisible not because of any magical protection, at least not at first, but because Sauron's pride blinds him to their existence. This is the paradox of the enemy. His strength is also his weakness. His power to dominate is founded on his understanding of power, and he cannot comprehend that the ring might rest in the hands of someone who does not seek to wield it, who does not desire dominion, who uses it for nothing grander than escaping the notice of bothersome relatives. Imagine the Dark Lord's perception as a searchlight sweeping across a vast plain. The light is brilliant, searing, capable of illuminating distant mountains and revealing armies on the march. But it is narrow. It moves. It turns. And in the darkness between its sweeps, small things can hide, especially if they do not move, do not draw attention, do not burn with the fire of ambition that Sauron expects to see. Bilbo is in that darkness. Not because he is invisible to the light, but because the light never turns his way. And there is another factor, one that Tolkien hints at but never fully elaborates. Sauron's spirit is wounded. The destruction of his body in Númenor was a trauma from which he never fully recovered. The loss of the ring was another wound, a severing of his very self. He is powerful, yes, but he is also diminished, distracted, fragmented. His attention is divided among 1,000 concerns. The rebuilding of his armies, the corruption of men, the hunt for the ring, the war against Gondor, the need to guard his own fortress against the possibility of attack. A being of lesser power, focused entirely on one task, might have sensed the ring more clearly. But Sauron is stretched thin, his consciousness pulled in too many directions. He is like a man trying to watch every door of a vast mansion while also managing a war and plotting the overthrow of nations. Something is bound to slip through the cracks, and Bilbo slips through. But Sauron's blindness is only part of the answer. For the ring itself is not merely a passive object waiting to be found. The ring has agency. It has purpose. It has a kind of consciousness, a will that is twisted and malevolent but nonetheless capable of calculation. And the ring, in its own dark wisdom, chooses not to betray Bilbo. Why? To answer that, we must enter the mind of the ring itself, a place of coiled malice and infinite patience, where treachery is not a betrayal of nature but its very essence. And there, in that golden coil, we find the second key to the mystery. The One Ring is alive, not in the way a tree is alive or a beast, not with breath or blood or the warmth of flesh, but it possesses a kind of consciousness nonetheless, a presence, a will, a self that transcends mere enchantment. It is a shard of Sauron's own spirit, crystallized into matter, bound into gold through arts of terrible subtlety. And like its maker, it desires, it hunts, it calculates. To hold the ring is to be in the presence of a mind, alien, patient, utterly without mercy. It does not speak in words, not at first. It whispers, it suggests. It preys upon the hidden desires of its bearer, finding the cracks in their soul and widening them, slowly, inexorably, until the bearer is no longer themselves but a servant, a puppet dancing to the ring's silent music. But the ring is not mindlessly destructive. It does not corrupt for the sake of corruption alone. It has a purpose: to return to Sauron, to reunite with the master from whom it was severed, to restore him to his full and terrible power. Every betrayal it engineers, every murder and madness it inspires is in service of that singular goal. And yet the ring did not betray Bilbo. Why? The answer lies in the nature of Bilbo himself and in the ring's cold assessment of its situation. The ring is patient. It has time. It has waited at the bottom of a river for 2,500 years, nestled in silt and darkness before Gollum found it. It can wait decades more if necessary. What matters is not speed, but certainty, finding the right moment, the right bearer to accomplish its return. Bilbo is not the right bearer. From the ring's perspective, Bilbo is useless. He is a hobbit, a creature of no ambition, no desire for power, no dreams of conquest. He does not seek to dominate others. He does not crave lordship over kingdoms. He does not even want wealth, beyond the comfortable sufficiency of Bag End. What can the ring do with such a bearer? How can it twist him toward its purpose when there is so little to twist? Consider what the ring does when worn by those with greater ambition. It feeds their desires, magnifies their strengths, and offers visions of glory. A great warrior sees himself leading armies. A king sees his realm expanding to cover the world. Even Frodo, who is humble and good-hearted, feels the ring's promise of power, the ability to command, to prevent suffering, to impose order on a chaotic world. But Bilbo uses the ring to avoid his relatives, to slip away from tiresome conversations, to play harmless pranks. There is no grand ambition for the ring to latch onto, no hunger for dominion that it can feed and grow until it consumes him. So the ring waits. It lies quiet in Bilbo's pocket, biding its time, hoping that eventually the hobbit will pass it to someone more useful, or that circumstances will change in a way that makes betrayal worthwhile. But there is another calculation at play, one that is darker and more cunning. If the ring were to call out to Sauron, to send a signal, a psychic pulse announcing its location, what would happen? Sauron would send the Nazgul. They would descend upon the Shire, tearing through the land until they found the ring bearer. And then what? They would take the ring from Bilbo by force, carrying it back to Mordor in triumph. But here is the problem. Bilbo is weak. He has no training in the use of the ring, no knowledge of its power. If the Nazgul came for him, there is no guarantee he would not simply give up the ring to save himself or others. And if the ring passes from Bilbo to the Nazgul, its journey is over. It returns to Sauron, yes, but in a manner that is abrupt, uncontrolled, without the opportunity for further mischief. The ring is treacherous. It does not want a simple return. It wants a return that maximizes its influence, that allows it to spread corruption as widely as possible. If it can pass through the hands of great and powerful beings, kings, wizards, warriors, then it can infect them, turn them, create chaos and ruin even as it makes its way back to Mordor. A direct retrieval by the Nazgul is efficient, but it is boring. The ring prefers a longer, more winding path, one that leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. So the ring stays silent. It does not call to Sauron. It waits for a better opportunity, a bearer with more potential, a situation that offers richer possibilities for treachery. And there is one more factor, one that the ring perhaps does not fully understand, but senses nonetheless. Bilbo resists. It is subtle, this resistance. Bilbo does not struggle against the ring in the way Frodo will, with agonizing effort and conscious will. But there is something in Bilbo's nature, a core of simple goodness, of hobbit sense, of contentment with small joys, that makes him less susceptible to the ring's corruption. He keeps it secret, yes, and he lies about how he acquired it. A small deception, the first sign of the ring's influence. But he does not descend into obsession as Gollum did. He does not hoard it, worship it, let it consume his entire existence. Instead, Bilbo lives his life. He writes his book. He tends his garden. He throws parties and grumbles about the Sackville Bagginses and goes on one final adventure in his old age. The ring is with him always, but it does not dominate him. It festers, yes. It begins to weigh on him, to stretch his years unnaturally, to create a faint shadow over his heart. But the process is slow, so slow that the ring grows frustrated. Hobbits, it seems, are more resilient than they appear. Their small lives, their lack of grand ambitions, their deep roots in the earth, and their love of simple things, these are not weaknesses, but strengths. They are a kind of armor, imperfect but real, against the corrupting influence of power. The ring realizes this dimly. It realizes that Bilbo is a dead end, a bearer who will never serve its purposes. And so it waits for a moment of transition, a chance to pass to a new hand, ideally a hand more pliable, more useful. That moment will come. The ring is patient. It can afford to wait. But while it waits, it does not call to Sauron. It does not announce its presence. It lies coiled in Bilbo's pocket like a sleeping serpent, cold and silent, calculating the moment when it can strike. And so Bilbo walks the roads of Middle-earth with the one ring in his possession, and Sauron's eye sweeps the horizons, searching, and finds nothing. The ring's silence is not loyalty. It is not mercy. It is strategy. The ring is playing a longer game, waiting for the pieces to align, for a bearer who will carry it closer to its goal while sowing chaos in their wake. But even the ring, in all its malice and cunning, does not account for one thing, a protection so subtle, so pervasive, that even the mind of Sauron cannot pierce it. A veil woven not by the ring, but by forces older and gentler. The protection of the Shire. There is a quality to the Shire that defies explanation. It is not grand. It is not mythic. There are no towers of white stone, no halls carved from living rock, no forests where the trees sing in voices of silver. The Shire is a land of small things: round doors and hedgerows, smoke rising from chimneys, the clink of mugs in taverns, the laughter of children playing by the water. It is a land that seems, at first glance, utterly ordinary, and yet it has remained untouched by the great evils of Middle-earth for over 1,000 years. While kingdoms rose and fell, while darkness spread from Mordor and Angmar, while wars raged and cities burned, the Shire endured, peaceful, green, quietly prosperous. No dragon troubled its borders. No Orcrade descended from the mountains. No dark lord set his eye upon its fields and decided they were worth conquering. Why? Tolkien himself provides part of the answer. In his letters and his narratives, he describes the Shire as being protected by the Rangers, the Dunedain of the north who patrol the borders of Eriador and guard the lands that were once part of the kingdom of Arnor. Chief among these Rangers is Aragorn, though he is far from the only one. These grim, weathered men move in secret through the wild places, turning aside threats before they ever reach the Hobbit lands, standing vigil in the rain and the cold so that the hobbits can sleep safe in their beds, blissfully unaware of the dangers that surround them. But the Rangers are not the whole answer. They are mortal men, valiant but finite. They cannot be everywhere. They cannot guard every road, every path, every hidden track through the woods. And yet the Shire remains safe, not just from external threats, but from the notice of external threats. Sauron does not think of the Shire. The Nazgul, when they finally begin their hunt for the ring, do not know where it is. They must search, question, torture for information. Even Saruman, who becomes corrupt and power-hungry, does not turn his attention to the Shire until late in the tale, and even then more as an afterthought of petty malice than a strategic priority. It is as though the Shire exists in a blind spot, hidden not by walls or armies, but by something more subtle, a kind of spiritual obscurity, a quality that makes it beneath notice, unimportant, forgettable. Part of this is the hobbits themselves. They are not a people who feature in the great myths and histories of Middle-earth. The elves, who remember the First Age, barely mention them. The chronicles of Gondor do not record their deeds. Even the dwarves, who travel widely, seem largely unaware of their existence beyond vague rumors of halflings in the northwest. Hobbits are, in a sense, invisible, not because they possess any magical power of concealment, but because they are so small, so provincial, so utterly unconnected to the great movements of power and history that they simply do not register on the awareness of the mighty. But there is more to it than that. There is a protection over the Shire that is older and deeper than the vigilance of Rangers. It is a protection that Tolkien hints at but never fully explains. A grace, a blessing, a lingering echo of the West. The West. The undying lands. Valinor, where the Valor dwell, and from which the light of the two trees once shone before Morgoth destroyed them. The elves who linger in Middle-earth carry with them a memory of that light, a presence that offers some defense against the shadow. And though the Shire is far from the Grey Havens, far from the realms of the elves, it is not untouched by their influence. Consider Gandalf. The Grey Wizard has wandered the Shire for decades, arriving with fireworks and tales, befriending hobbits, smoking pipeweed with them in the gardens of Bag End. He seems a harmless old man, eccentric and kindly. But Gandalf is no man. He is a Maya, one of the Astari sent by the Valor to oppose Sauron. His very presence is a warding, a sign of the West's concern for even the smallest and most overlooked corners of Middle-earth. Gandalf's guardianship is quiet. He does not raise fortresses or summon armies. He simply pays attention. He watches. He listens. And when he senses that the Shire is important, that the fate of Bilbo and his ring may be woven into greater purposes, he ensures that others watch as well. The Rangers increase their vigilance. Elrond takes note. Even Galadriel, far away in Lothlorien, seems to sense the significance of these small, unlikely folk. There is a web of protection around the Shire, woven by the wise, a web so subtle that even those within it are unaware of its existence. The hobbits live their lives in peace, complaining about the weather and arguing about property boundaries, never knowing that they are shielded by powers they do not comprehend. And this protection extends to Bilbo. When he travels beyond the Shire, when he wears the ring in the goblin tunnels and the halls of Erebor, he carries with him a kind of innocence, a quality that makes him hard to perceive as a threat. He is not mighty. He is not cunning in the way that Sauron understands cunning. He is simply a small person doing his best in a world much larger and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Sauron, searching for the ring, looks for power. He looks for ambition. He looks for the signs of someone trying to use the ring, to wield it. Bilbo does none of these things. He simply carries it, and in carrying it with no desire for domination, he becomes invisible to the very perception that should have detected him. It is a protection born of smallness, of humility, of the hobbits, fundamental disconnection from the great and terrible powers that move in the world. They are beneath notice not because they are weak, but because they do not desire the things that the mighty desire. They want comfort, peace, good food, and the company of friends. These are not ambitions that Sauron can understand. These are not desires that register on his radar. And so Bilbo remains hidden, wrapped in a veil he does not know exists, protected by forces he does not recognize. But even this protection has its limits. There comes a time when the ring's presence can no longer be concealed, when the weight of its power and the malice of its will begin to press against the boundaries of safety. That time is approaching. The years are turning. Sauron is growing stronger, and Bilbo, unknowing, carries his burden toward a reckoning. Picture, if you will, the misty mountains in the depth of night. Far beneath the peaks, in tunnels carved by goblins and worn smooth by the passage of countless feet and claws, a small figure stumbles through the darkness. He has lost his companions. He has lost his sword. No, not lost. He still has Sting, clutched tightly in his trembling hand. But he has lost his way, lost his courage, lost any sense of how he will ever escape this nightmare of stone and shadow. His name is Bilbo Baggins, and he has never been more terrified in his life. He does not know, yet, what he has found. The ring he picked up in the dark, cold and smooth and strangely heavy for such a small thing, rests now in his pocket. It is just a ring, nothing more, or so he thinks. Ahead in the darkness, he hears a voice, a wet, hissing voice talking to itself in a language that makes his skin crawl. He creeps forward and sees, by the faint phosphorescence of some underground lake, a creature. It is small, wretched, with pale skin and great luminous eyes. It hunches on a rock, muttering to itself, and Bilbo realizes with a sick lurch of his stomach that the creature is hungry. Hungry for him. This is Gollum. And this is the moment when Bilbo, without understanding what he is doing, slips the ring onto his finger and vanishes. Gollum shrieks in confusion. Where did the hobbit go? How did he escape? The creature tears through the tunnels, searching, and Bilbo follows in silence, invisible, his heart hammering so loudly he is certain it will give him away. But it does not. He escapes. He finds his way to the surface, reunites with the dwarves, and continues on his journey. And far to the south, in a tower of dark stone still under construction, Sauron does not stir. Why? Because at this moment, Sauron is at his weakest. The year is 2941 of the Third Age. Sauron has only recently declared himself openly, abandoning the guise of the necromancer and beginning the rebuilding of Barad-dûr. He is gathering his strength, summoning his servants, reconstituting his power, but he is far from his full might. His perception is limited, his attention focused on nearer concerns. The consolidation of Mordor, the forging of alliances with the Easterlings and the Haradrim, the slow corruption of Saruman through the Palantir. The ring has been lost for nearly 3,000 years. Sauron has searched for it, sent agents to scour the Gladden fields where Isildur fell, interrogated Gollum when the creature was captured by his servants. But he has learned nothing useful. The ring could be anywhere, at the bottom of the sea, buried under a mountain, hidden in some forgotten vault. For all Sauron knows, it may be lost forever, dissolved into the waters of the Anduin, or cast into some abyss from which it can never be retrieved. He does not expect it to be in the possession of a hobbit wandering through goblin tunnels. The idea would not even occur to him, and so Bilbo's first use of the ring goes entirely unnoticed. He is too far away, Sauron is too weak, and the use itself is too small. A moment of instinctive self-preservation, not a wielding of power. There is no resonance for Sauron to detect, no signal that would draw his gaze northward. Bilbo escapes. He continues his adventure. He uses the ring again in Mirkwood, slipping past the giant spiders, rescuing the dwarves from the dungeons of the Elven King. He wears it in the halls of Erebor, walking unseen among the treasures of the dragon. Each time it is a tool of survival, of stealth, nothing more. And each time Sauron remains oblivious. The timeline is crucial here. During the years of Bilbo's adventure and the decades that follow, Sauron is still rebuilding. He is not yet the overwhelming power he will become by the time of the War of the Ring. His eye is not yet fully formed, his network of spies not yet complete. He is hunting for the ring, yes, but his search is broad, unfocused, driven more by hope than by any concrete knowledge. By the time Sauron's power has grown enough that he might have sensed the ring's use, Bilbo has returned to the Shire. And there, wrapped in the obscurity of that green land, protected by rangers and Gandalf's quiet vigilance, Bilbo settles into a comfortable retirement. He uses the ring occasionally, mostly to avoid his neighbors, to slip away from tedious social obligations, to enjoy a private walk without being accosted by curious young hobbits asking about his adventures. The uses are trivial. There is no ambition behind them, no desire for power. And so the ring remains silent and Sauron remains blind. For decades, this equilibrium holds. Bilbo grows older, but slowly, unnaturally. The ring preserves him, stretching his years far beyond what any hobbit should expect. It is a subtle corruption, a wearing of the spirit that Bilbo does not fully recognize. But compared to what the ring did to Gollum, reducing him to a pitiful, murderous wretch over centuries, Bilbo's experience is remarkably gentle. The ring is waiting. It is biding its time, hoping that Bilbo will die or lose the ring in a way that allows it to pass to a more useful bearer. And eventually, that moment comes. But until it does, Bilbo lives his quiet life, invisible to the greatest evil in Middle-earth. A small figure in a small land, carrying the fate of the world in his pocket and never knowing it. Decades pass. In the Shire, the seasons turn as they always have. Spring blossoms give way to summer warmth, autumn harvests yield to winter snows, and the wheel turns again. Hobbits are born, grow up, marry, have children, and pass into comfortable old age. The world beyond the borders of the Shire grows darker, but within its green hills, life continues with a rhythm that seems eternal. And Bilbo Baggins does not age. Oh, he grows older, certainly. His hair thins and whitens, his face gains lines, but he does not age in the way hobbits should. He should be stooped and slow by now, hard of hearing, content to sit by the fire and let younger folk manage the affairs of the world. Instead, he is spry, energetic, still prone to setting off on long walks with his walking stick and a pack of provisions. His neighbors remark on it. Old Bilbo looks well for his age, doesn't he? But they do not think too deeply about it. Hobbits are not a people given to dark suspicions. Only Gandalf notices. Only Gandalf understands. The wizard visits Bag End often during these years, more often than he used to. He watches Bilbo with eyes that are ancient and shrewd, eyes that have seen the rise and fall of kingdoms, that have looked upon powers beyond mortal comprehension. He sees the way Bilbo's hand strays to his pocket when he is anxious. He sees the faint shadow in the hobbit's eyes, the moments of distraction, the increasing reluctance to part with a certain small object. Gandalf does not know yet what the ring truly is, but he suspects, and he begins to plan. Meanwhile, far to the south, Sauron's power grows. Barad-dûr is complete, a tower of iron and malice that claws at the sky. The Nazgûl have returned, 9 kings of men who were ensnared by rings and are now bound utterly to Sauron's will, immortal and terrible. Mordor stirs with the tramp of orc feet, the clang of forges, the screams of slaves. The shadow spreads, and Sauron searches. Constantly, obsessively, he searches for the ring. His agents scour the lands. His spies infiltrate the courts of men. His Nazgûl ride abroad, cloaked and hooded, seeking information, hunting for rumors. He interrogates Gollum, dragging from the wretched creature the words Shire and Baggins, though Gollum knows little else. But the information is fragmented. Sauron does not yet understand its significance. Shire is a word that means nothing to him, a rustic backwater, a place of no consequence. Baggins is a name unknown in any history or chronicle he has studied. The pieces do not yet connect. Why? Because Sauron is looking in the wrong places, asking the wrong questions. He expects the ring to be in the hands of someone important, a king, a wizard, a great warrior. He hunts among the mighty, interrogating those who might have found it, tracking rumors of powerful artifacts, following any whisper that might lead him to his prize. The idea that the ring is in a hobbit hole, tucked away in a desk drawer or carried casually in a waistcoat pocket by a retired adventurer who uses it to avoid his cousins, does not occur to him. It is too absurd, too beneath the dignity of the ring, of himself, of the grand narrative of power and domination that defines his existence. And so the years pass and Bilbo remains undetected. But the ring is not idle. It works on Bilbo slowly, patiently. It does not drive him mad as it did Gollum, but it wears on him in subtler ways. He becomes possessive of it, secretive. He lies about how he acquired it, even to Gandalf. A small lie, but a lie nonetheless, and one that troubles the wizard deeply. He feels a growing attachment to the ring, a sense that it is his, that he cannot bear to part with it even though he knows, on some level, that it is a burden. This is the ring's influence. It feeds on attachment, on the desire to possess, to keep, to hoard. It does not need grand ambitions to corrupt. It can work with smaller vices, greed, jealousy, the fear of loss. But Bilbo resists in ways that Gollum never could. He has friends. He has a life beyond the ring. He writes his book, There and Back Again, chronicling his adventures. He teaches Frodo, his young cousin, about the world beyond the Shire. He maintains connections to the things that make him hobbit, his love of good food, his enjoyment of simple pleasures, his delight in fireworks and parties and the turning of the seasons. These are not dramatic acts of heroism, but they are acts of resistance nonetheless. They keep Bilbo anchored to himself, prevent the ring from consuming him entirely. And the ring, sensing this, grows impatient. It realizes that Bilbo will never be fully corrupted, never be turned into a useful servant. He is too content, too rooted in the small joys of his life. The ring needs to move on, to find a bearer who will carry it closer to Mordor, closer to Sauron, closer to its ultimate goal. So the ring waits for an opportunity. A moment of weakness, a chance to slip away. That moment comes on Bilbo's 111th birthday, a grand party, the talk of the Shire, with fireworks and feasting and speeches. And at the climax of the evening, Bilbo slips the ring on one last time and vanishes, literally and figuratively. He leaves the Shire, leaves Bag End, leaves everything behind to seek peace in Rivendell. But before he goes, Gandalf confronts him, demands that he leave the ring behind. And Bilbo, after a terrible struggle, his face contorting with anger and fear and possessiveness, finally does. He places the ring on the mantelpiece and walks out the door, leaving it for Frodo. This is the turning point. This is the moment the ring has been waiting for. It has passed from one bearer to another, and the new bearer is younger, more impressionable, more likely to be drawn into adventures that will carry the ring out of the Shire and into the wider world. And almost immediately, everything changes. Sauron's attention, vague and unfocused before, begins to sharpen. The Nazgul, who have been searching aimlessly, receive new orders. The hunt intensifies, because the ring, in passing to Frodo, has awakened. It senses opportunity. And for the first time in decades, it begins to call. Not loudly, not yet, but enough. Enough for Sauron to sense a disturbance, a ripple in the fabric of his awareness. Something has changed, and the eye turns slowly, inevitably, toward the west. There is a moment, invisible to mortal eyes, when the balance shifts. It happens not with thunder or flame, not with a cry that echoes across mountains. It happens in silence, in the quiet of Bag End, in the instant when Bilbo's hand releases the ring and it falls, briefly, so briefly, through the air before landing on the mantelpiece with a soft clink of metal on wood. In that instant, the ring is free. Free from Bilbo's ownership, however reluctant. Free from the grip of a bearer who has held it longer than any since Gollum. And in that freedom, the ring's consciousness, such as it is, wakes. It has been dormant, waiting, conserving its malice. But now, sensing the possibility of movement, of progression toward its goal, it stirs like a sleeper roused by the scent of food. Frodo picks it up unknowing. He feels its weight, its strange warmth. He pockets it, thinking it a curious inheritance, an odd heirloom from his eccentric uncle. He does not understand what he has been given. How could he? But the ring understands. It evaluates its new bearer with the cold precision of a predator assessing prey. Frodo is younger than Bilbo. He is less set in his ways, less anchored to the comforts of the Shire. He is curious, intelligent, more prone to wandering thoughts and dreams of distant lands. And crucially, He is about to be thrust into danger, into a quest that will carry him out of the Shire and toward Mordor, toward the very destination the ring desires. The ring does not yet act openly. It is still cautious, still calculating. But it begins to reach out, to send tendrils of influence into Frodo's mind, to plant the seeds of obsession and attachment. And in reaching out, in extending its will beyond the confines of its golden circle, it creates a disturbance, a ripple in the psychic fabric of Middle-earth. And Sauron feels it, not clearly, not with certainty. He does not suddenly know that the ring is in the Shire, in the hands of a hobbit named Frodo Baggins. But he feels something, a flicker at the edge of his awareness, a sensation like a half-remembered dream. The ring is active. The ring is moving. After 3,000 years of silence, of absence, it is there, somewhere in the world, and it is no longer lying dormant at the bottom of a river or locked in a vault. Sauron's reaction is swift and terrible. He sends forth the Nazgul, his most dread servants, with a single command: find the ring. Bring it to me. The 9 ride out from Minas Morgul, from Dol Guldur, from the hidden places where they have waited. They are cloaked in shadow and crowned with terror, and their presence alone is enough to break the courage of strong men. They begin their hunt, following the thin thread of the ring's presence, searching for information, for clues, for anything that will lead them to their prize. But even now, Sauron does not know where to look. The disturbance is vague, directional at best. He knows the ring is in the west, somewhere in Eriador, but that is a vast region, forests, rivers, hills, ruins. It will take time to narrow the search. Time and information tortured or coerced from those who might know. The Nazgul begin in Gondor, questioning rangers, hunting for rumors. They move north into Rohan, into the wilderness. They capture Gollum, again, and wring from him the words he has already spoken before. Shire, Baggins. This time, the words mean something. Because this time, Sauron is listening with the certainty that the ring is near. He focuses his terrible will on the word Shire, reaches into his fragmented knowledge of Middle-earth's geography, and realizes a place in the northwest, a land of halflings, a region so insignificant he has never bothered to consider it. But if the ring is there, he sends the Nazgul to the Shire, and the hunt truly begins. Now the danger to Frodo is immediate and mortal. The Nazgul are closing in, following his trail, sensing the ring's presence more clearly the nearer they come. They ride through the Shire, terrifying the hobbits, asking questions in voices that freeze the blood. Baggins! Where is Baggins? Frodo flees. He and his companions, Sam, Merry, Pippin, leave the Shire in desperate haste, staying one step ahead of the Black Riders. And every time Frodo puts on the ring, every time he uses it to escape danger, the signal grows stronger. The Nazgul can feel it, a pull, a scent, a trail that grows warmer the closer they come. This is the moment when the ring's strategy shifts. It no longer lies dormant. It actively tries to betray Frodo. It wants to be found. It wants to be taken. Because the Nazgul will bring it to Sauron, and that is the ring's ultimate goal. But the ring miscalculates. It does not account for the courage of the hobbits, the guidance of Gandalf, the protection of Aragorn. It does not foresee that Frodo will resist its pull even in his darkest moments, that he will find allies who shield him, that he will be born to Rivendell where the wise can counsel and protect. At Rivendell, Elrond holds a council. The gathered lords of men and elves and dwarves debate what to do with the ring. Some suggest using it, wielding it against Sauron. Others argue for hiding it, casting it into the sea or burying it in some secret place. But Gandalf and Elrond and Galadriel understand the truth. The ring cannot be used without corruption. It cannot be hidden forever. There is only one option: to destroy it, to cast it into the fires of Mount Doom where it was made. And so the quest is set. Frodo, the most unlikely of heroes, volunteers to carry the ring. Not because he is strong, but because he is not. Because he has shown a resistance to its corruption that none of the great and mighty could match. The difference between Bilbo and Frodo is crucial here. Bilbo carried the ring in a time when Sauron was weak and distracted, when the ring itself saw no path to its master. Frodo carries it when Sauron is at the height of his power, when the ring is fully awake and actively treacherous, when every step toward Mordor is a step into greater danger. And yet Frodo succeeds where Bilbo would not have. Not because he is stronger, he is not, but because he is aware. He knows what the ring is. He knows what it will do to him. And he accepts the burden with open eyes, choosing to carry it despite the cost. This is the heart of the paradox. Bilbo was hidden because the ring did not care about him, because Sauron did not imagine he existed, because the protections around the Shire and the weakness of the enemy combined to keep him invisible. Frodo is hunted. Frodo is known. Frodo is visible to the eye, and every use of the ring draws Sauron's gaze more sharply. But Frodo carries the ring to its destruction. He walks into Mordor, into the heart of the enemy's power, and he endures, battered, broken, nearly lost, but he endures. And the ring, for all its cunning, for all its treachery, does not account for the strength of small things, the strength of hobbits, the strength of mercy, of friendship, of the willingness to bear terrible burdens not for glory, but because someone must. In the end, it is not a warrior or a king who destroys the ring. It is a hobbit. Two hobbits, in fact, Frodo and Sam, and even Gollum, who plays his part in the pattern woven by fate. But the beginning of that end was with Bilbo. Bilbo, who found the ring, who kept it safe, who resisted its corruption long enough to pass it on when the time was right. Bilbo, who was never seen, because he was never supposed to be. In the depths of Tolkien's mythology, there is a concept that transcends the actions of heroes and the schemes of villains. It is the idea of the music of the Aenir, the great song sung at the beginning of time by the Valar and Maiar before the world was made. In that music, all of history was prefigured. Every event, every choice, woven into a tapestry so vast and intricate that no single mind, not even Morgoth in his pride, could comprehend it fully. This is not fate in the sense of predestination, where free will is an illusion. Tolkien rejected that idea. His characters make real choices, choices that matter, choices that shape the world. But their choices occur within a framework, a pattern, a design that ensures that even the smallest actions can have consequences beyond imagining. Bilbo's finding of the ring was not an accident. Gandalf says as much in his conversation with Frodo in the mines of Moria. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, he says, and not by its maker, in which case you also were meant to have it, and that may be an encouraging thought. Meant not by Sauron, not by the ring, but by something greater, by the one, by Iluvatar, the creator who stands beyond the music and who alone can introduce themes that were not sung by the Aenir, themes that overturn the designs of the shadow. This is the theological heart of Tolkien's world. Evil is powerful, yes. It can corrupt, destroy, dominate, but it is not ultimate. It cannot create, only twist. It cannot write the final verse of the song. And so Bilbo, in all his insignificance, in all his unheroic ordinariness, becomes an instrument of a design he does not comprehend. He finds the ring in a dark tunnel, not because he is clever or brave, but because he stumbles upon it, or because it stumbles upon him, guided by a hand far gentler than the ring's own malice. The ring thinks it is using Bilbo, thinks it is biding its time until a more useful bearer comes along. But in truth, the ring is being used by a power it cannot perceive, for a purpose it cannot fathom. Bilbo's invisibility to Sauron is not merely a function of distance, or timing, or the Dark Lord's blindness. It is a protection, woven into the fabric of providence itself. Bilbo was hidden because he needed to be hidden. The ring had to be kept safe, kept secret, preserved through the long years until the moment when it could be passed to Frodo, and Frodo could begin the quest that would end in its destruction. If Sauron had found the ring during Bilbo's lifetime, the story would have ended differently. The ring would have returned to its master. Sauron would have regained his full power. Middle-earth would have fallen into darkness, and no force in the world could have stood against him. But Sauron did not find it. Because Bilbo was shielded, by his own nature, by the obscurity of the Shire, by the vigilance of Gandalf, by the grace of powers beyond the circles of the world. This is not to say that Bilbo had no agency, no choice. He chose to show mercy to Gollum, a choice that Gandalf later calls one of the most important in the entire tale. He chose to give up the ring, despite the agony it cost him. He chose to live a life of kindness and generosity, to write his book, to teach Frodo about courage and curiosity and the wide world beyond the Shire. These choices mattered. They shaped the story. They made Bilbo who he was. But they occurred within a pattern, a design, where even the smallest choices can serve the greater good in ways that are not immediately visible. Tolkien was a Catholic, and his faith permeates his mythology. He believed in a world where providence operates quietly, where grace can touch even the most unlikely souls, where the meek and the humble can confound the proud and the mighty. The invisibility of Bilbo to Sauron is, in this sense, a theological statement, a declaration that the small, the overlooked, the seemingly insignificant are not forgotten by the one who made them. It is a theme that resonates throughout the Lord of the Rings. The hobbits, the smallest and least of the free peoples, become the instruments of salvation, not because they are warriors or wizards, but because they are good, in the simple, unadorned sense of the word. They love their friends. They cherish their homes. They do what is right even when it is hard, even when it costs them everything. And that goodness, that small, stubborn refusal to give in to despair, is enough. It is more than enough. It is the crack in the armor of the shadow, the weak point that even Sauron, in all his power, cannot defend against. Bilbo was never meant to be seen by Sauron. He was meant to be the beginning of something greater, a chain of mercy and courage and sacrifice that would lead, step by painful step, to the fires of Mount Doom and the unmaking of the Dark Lord's power. He was meant to be hidden, so that when the time came, the ring could be revealed, not to Sauron, but to those who would destroy it. And in that hiding, in that quiet, unheroic invisibility, lay the seed of victory. Let us return now to the image with which we began. The eye atop Barad-dûr, burning like a wheel of flame, turning slowly across the horizons of Middle-earth. Searching, always searching. The gaze of the enemy, terrible and relentless, probing every shadow, every hidden place, hunting for the one thing that can restore him to ultimate power. And in the west, in a land of green hills and winding rivers, a small figure walks a familiar road. He is old now, truly old, no longer preserved by the ring's unnatural grace. His hair is white, his steps slower, but his eyes are bright with the light of one who has seen wonders and returned to tell of them. Bilbo Baggins, adventurer. Scholar, ring-bearer. He walks the road to the Grey Havens, where a ship waits to carry him into the west, to the undying lands where he will find peace at last. Behind him lies the Shire, safe and green, untouched by the war that ravaged so much of Middle-earth. Ahead lies the sea, and beyond the sea, a light that does not fade. He carries no ring now. That burden has passed. It has been unmade, destroyed in the fires of Mount Doom by Frodo and Sam, by their courage and sacrifice. The shadow has fallen. Sauron is defeated, his tower cast down, his power broken forever. And through it all, Bilbo was never seen. Not by Sauron, not by the Eye. He carried the ring for 60 years, used it, kept it, and remained invisible to the one being in all of Middle-earth who should have sensed it most keenly. Why? Because Sauron's strength was also his weakness. He could not conceive of smallness as a virtue. He could not imagine that the mighty could be confounded by the humble. He searched among kings and warriors and wizards, and he missed entirely the small, hairy-footed creature who altered the fate of the world. Because the ring, for all its malice, miscalculated. It waited for a bearer who could wield power, and in waiting, it allowed itself to be carried by one who had no such ambitions. It lay dormant in the pocket of a hobbit, biding its time, and in that dormancy, it was kept from its master long enough for the wise to understand what it was and what must be done. Because the Shire and the hobbits who dwelt there were protected by rangers, by Gandalf, by the grace of the West. They lived in a bubble of peace, a last remnant of innocence in a world growing dark, and that bubble held just long enough for the quest to begin. And because Providence, the quiet, subtle hand of the one, wove a design more intricate than any mind could grasp, Bilbo was meant to find the ring. He was meant to keep it safe. He was meant to pass it to Frodo when the time was right. He was meant to be invisible so that the ring could be preserved until the moment when it could be destroyed. This is the paradox at the heart of the tale. Bilbo, the least of the ring-bearers in terms of power and importance, was the most crucial. Without his mercy to Gollum, the quest would have failed. Without his long guardianship of the ring, it would have fallen into darker hands. Without his willingness to let it go, Frodo would never have begun the journey that saved Middle-earth. And through it all, he remained unseen, a small light in the darkness. A quiet strength that the shadow could not perceive. There is something profoundly hopeful in this. It says that the small and the overlooked matter, that the humble and the kind have a role to play in the great stories of the world, that you do not have to be mighty to make a difference. You only have to be willing to do what is right, to bear your burdens with grace, to show mercy when you have the chance. Bilbo did not set out to save the world. He set out for an adventure, reluctantly, because a wizard knocked on his door and would not take no for an answer. He stumbled into danger, survived by wit and luck, and came home with a story to tell. And in the process, he became the hinge upon which the fate of Middle-earth turned. As he walks the road to the Havens, the sun sets behind him, casting long shadows across the hills. The shadows are gentle now, no longer tinged with menace. The darkness has been defeated. The world is entering a new age, the age of men, and the elves are fading, sailing into the west to leave the lands of Middle-earth behind. Bilbo does not look back. He has said his farewells, left his memoirs for Frodo, passed on his stories to the next generation. His part in the tale is done. But the tale itself will endure. It will be told and retold, sung in halls and written in books, a story of small folk who did great deeds, a story of mercy and courage and the quiet strength that lies beneath notice, A story of a hobbit who carried the one ring and was never seen. And so we come to the end of our tale. But like all the best tales, it does not truly end. It lingers, it asks questions, it invites us to look deeper. Did Sauron fail to see Bilbo? Or was Bilbo never meant to be seen? It is a question without a simple answer. On one level, the answer is tactical. Sauron was too weak, too distracted, too blinded by his own expectations to perceive a hobbit carrying his ring. The timing was wrong. The distance was too great. The ring itself saw no advantage in betraying Bilbo. But on another level, the answer is mythic. Bilbo was hidden by a design greater than Sauron could comprehend. He was shielded by providence, by the quiet grace of the One, by the pattern woven into the music of the Aenir at the beginning of time. Both answers are true. Both are necessary. Because Tolkien's world is one where the physical and the spiritual, the tactical and the mythic, the mundane and the magical, all interweave. It is a world where a small person can stumble into a dark tunnel and find a ring, and that simple act can be both accident and destiny, both chance and design. This is the genius of Tolkien's storytelling. He does not resolve the tension between free will and providence. He holds them in balance, showing us a world where choices matter, but also where those choices occur within a larger pattern, where even the smallest actions can have consequences that ripple across ages. Bilbo chose to spare Gollum. That was his choice, made freely in a moment of pity. And that choice saved the world. Because Gollum, at the very end in the cracks of doom, took the ring and fell into the fire, destroying it when Frodo could not. Without Bilbo's mercy, Gollum would have died in a tunnel under the misty mountains, and the ring would have remained lost or been taken by someone else, or any of 1,000 other possibilities, none of them good. But Bilbo's choice was also part of the design. He was meant to show mercy. The moment was woven into the pattern, prepared by forces beyond his understanding. How can both be true? Tolkien would say, because that is the nature of a created world. We are free, we choose. But we are also held, guided, loved by a creator who can write straight with crooked lines, who can bring good out of evil, who can take our small, stumbling attempts at goodness and weave them into something beautiful. This is why Bilbo's invisibility to Sauron matters. It is not just a plot convenience, a way to explain why the Dark Lord didn't find the ring sooner. It is a statement about the nature of good and evil, about the limits of power, about the surprising strength of humility. Sauron represents the will to dominate, the desire to impose order through force. He is mighty, he is terrible, but he is also limited. His power blinds him to the very things that will bring about his downfall. He cannot see hobbits because he has no category for them. He cannot imagine mercy because he has no experience of it. He cannot comprehend that the small and the weak might matter, because his entire worldview is built on the primacy of strength. And so he loses, not to an army, not to a great king wielding a sword of ancient power. He loses to two hobbits crawling through the wastes of Mordor, carrying a burden they can barely endure, driven by nothing more than stubborn goodness and love for each other. He loses to the very things he despised. And it began with Bilbo. Bilbo who was never seen. Bilbo who stumbled into greatness without seeking it. Bilbo who showed mercy when he could have killed, who gave up the ring when he could have kept it, who chose kindness over comfort again and again. So we ask the question one last time. Did Sauron fail to see Bilbo, or was Bilbo never meant to be seen? Perhaps the answer is both. Perhaps the answer is neither. Perhaps the answer is that in Tolkien's world, as in our own, the greatest truths cannot be reduced to simple formulas. They must be lived, experienced, wondered at. What we know is this: Bilbo carried the ring. Sauron never found him. And because of that invisibility, because of that small, unnoticed act of providence, Middle-earth was saved. The eye burned, the shadow searched. And in the West, a hobbit lived his life, free and unafraid, carrying the fate of the world in his pocket, and was never seen, until the moment when being unseen mattered most. Dear listener, this story ends, but many await. Subscribe so no tale escapes you.